So we are in fasting mode. What does that mean? That's our conversation this morning. Prolonged fasting is going to be my primary topic, okay? Prolonged fasting. Why this is so important is because we're seeing now, most of you know, if you don't know, this will be good for you, kind of re-educating, but a lot of disease isn't necessarily genetic. I just had a friend text me this morning who's dealing with colon cancer, and I reminded myself it's not necessarily genetic, it's metabolic. It's happening at the cellular level, and that's why they say, genetics loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So lots of information out there on fasting, lots of information out there on the different types of diets. And why do I think this topic is so important? Again, if you have questions, definitely email us at our church website. Also, the featured book today is Feasting and Fasting, What Works, What Doesn't, and Why. And you can actually download it free right now. Of course, it's on Amazon, everywhere else, but you can download it for free right now at the church website, Westside Christian Fellowship.org. And it should answer a lot of your questions on that I can't get to on, can I exercise when fasting? How long should I fast? What type of fast? What can I drink when I'm fasting? Is this fasting? Is this breaking a fast? It just answers a lot more questions. There's two topics when it comes to, at least when I teach on fasting, got to remember which way to go, and you're in fasting mode. There's the physical benefits, which I think are huge, and there's also the spiritual benefits that are huge, and they're the priority, right? I think we can all agree on that. But I don't think there's any harm from time to time say, you know what, Lord, I'm going to go on a fast. Of course, I'm going to seek you. I'm going to pray. But also, I'm looking for some physical breakthroughs. I need this type 2 diabetes to go down. I need this inflammation, this heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, memory, joint pain, pretty much anything you can think of can be aided in the process of fasting. The reason is why the body falls apart often, of course, we're aging, but it's the food, it's the consumption, it's the toxicity, it's the chemicals, it's the lack of nutrients. And so if you want the spiritual to be the foundation, we are starving the flesh and in order to be filled with the Spirit. Starving the flesh in order to be filled with the Spirit. We give up an appetite for food for a greater appetite for God. We want more of God. We want less of ourselves, more of God. So we humble ourselves, we fast, and we pray. It's about just seeking God. And it takes time. It takes effort, of course. And there's breakthrough, and there's challenges, and there's valleys. So spiritually speaking, it's important, and it should be a priority. But many of us it's hard to get to the spiritual because the physical is really sidetracking us. It's too difficult. It's too challenging. It's too hard. So that's why I want to unpack some of that, especially prolonged fasting. The longer you can go, starving the flesh, praying, seeking God, of course, using wisdom, talk to your doctor, electrolytes that your body will need. And what about OMAD, 1 meal a day? What about intermittent fasting? I believe they have their benefits for sure. And then you get into all the different diets out there, the diet craze, right? From carnivore on one end to raw, plant-based, nothing cooked, and then everything in between there. And if you're wanting tips on that too, by the way, the best diet is God's food, God's way, which means in moderation, as healthy as you can get, close to nature. I opt for, plant-based as being my primary fuel. I know people have tons of benefits on carnivore, and then I watch videos where people have tons of benefits on, going whole plant-based. It's amazing how much better people feel. Even juicing. People go on a 7-day, 14-day juice, 20-day juice, and they feel amazing because they're re-energizing the body. So I really leave that up to the individual and God. I don't try to, take a hardline stance on what diet is best. I have my opinions, but when it comes to prolonged fasting, what happens for many people, and again, you need to set your target date with God, how long to go, that's between you and Him. But what we do know is it can really help as time progresses. So the first day, and I don't want to give a history here of how it works. Many of you know, but the first day, you're pretty much burning through your stored glucose. And then after that day, you're kind of a couple of days, maybe your glucose is spared, used up, and now your body needs energy. And now it begins to pull from your fat tissue. Of course, it will right at the beginning. I think it pulls from a little bit of your muscle tissue. It's called gluconeogenesis. The body converts proteins, amino acids into fuel. Your body begins to switch. It's how we are created. So if you want to not get caught up in the diet craze, because it can get crazy from, red light therapy and cold water plunge and heat and the sauna and grounding and what type of exercise and what type of diet. And it can get paralyzing. I mean, if I get confused, I can imagine people that are just kind of learning about all this. But if you look at it through the lens of creation, how did God create us? So probably the number one exercise, bar none, is walking. Wow. We're hearing a lot about that, aren't we? Steps. Getting your 10,000 steps in or 12,000 steps or 15,000 steps. Good goal. I think that's so important. Shane, what diet is best? And I think it's good to experiment too. Of course, like Jordan Peterson, carnivore, and his daughter, huge benefits. I have some issues with that as a lifestyle. You're missing phytochemicals in the plant. You're missing the fiber, the enzymes, the antioxidant ability, and the fact that God in creation said, I've given you all the greens and herbs of the field for fuel. But that works for him. I mean, I'm not going to say anything. I would like to see them try to introduce, some asparagus or something, see how that helps. And then you have people on the other end of the spectrum who are doing great. So is it God-given food in moderation? I would definitely, add some vegetables in with the meat and berries and things like that. But again, this is not a podcast for this. It's really about fasting. So that's why I'm going to take your questions here in a minute. But prolonged fasting, the big reason I think that most people don't do it, at least what I've heard, and it's been a fear of mine, especially as we get older, is you'll lose muscle. Okay. So, your body goes into something called protein sparing mode, where it actually spares the protein, spares the muscle. Why? Creation. How God created us. So yeah, there might be a little amino breakdown, gluconeogenesis, but the huge benefits outweigh the little bit of muscle that might be spent as fuel. And also you can gain that muscle. Studies have found you can gain that muscle right back. And so, but once your body switches a couple of days and says, okay, we're not eating for a while, and goes into ketosis, then the muscle is spared. It might be broken down a little bit now and then. That's why I encourage people not to do high intensity training when fasting, because your body needs that quick energy. And so that's when it will break down muscle for fuel if it needs something really quick, because creating ketones is a slower process. But you can research Buchenheimer Wilhelmi Clinic in Germany. They've been doing this over 110 years, I think. And they've got studies on a 10-day, they use 250 calories of juice, just enough where you can function, but then you have Alan Goldhammer and others saying water only. I like Buchenheimer because it's doable when you can't go to a clinic. And so they have a 10-day study on men who they maintain their muscle. And I reached out to them this week and I asked if they had anything longer than that. They said it shows the same consistency at 21 days of this type of fast, preserving muscle, but not longer than that. So what happens on a prolonged fast, the reason I'm promoting prolonged fasting is because I think it's the most beneficial. The irony is once you get past day 2, day 3, that's when the healing takes place. That's when you start to feel better. That's when, even your prayer life, because it's hard at first. Sometimes you don't feel like fasting. You don't feel like praying. You don't feel like reading the words. Like, what is the point of this? So prolonged allows you to go longer so you can get past the hard stages and benefit. And I would go into it praying, Lord, I don't want caffeine withdrawals. I don't want alcohol withdrawals. I don't want nicotine withdrawals, processed food. God, help me. Pray for heaven, but expect hell. What I mean by that is expect withdrawals, because that's why, fasting thousand years, Jesus' time probably wasn't that challenging. So you know what? I'm not going to have figs today. I'm not going to eat any fish. And they're probably not detoxing from a lot. So it is more challenging, today. So prolonged fasting, the longer the longer you can go, the better, for health reasons. And they actually say, I'm reading books by Herbert Shelton and people even 100, 120 years ago, that they talk about where you'll know when it's time to stop, when your body's done, because natural hunger returns. It's more of a sensation in your throat. It's actually not in your, my stomach's growling. That's not hunger. That's addiction. So you kind of know, and I'm not encouraging people to, consult your physician, talk to your doctor, do some research. If you're in medication, taking medication, that has to be considered. What type of medication? That's why I like the Buchenheimer 250 calorie a day fast. And then I mentioned last time in one of my podcasts, Fasting in a Gluttonous World. Fasting in a Gluttonous World by my personal doctor, I consider, Dr. Paul Brillhart. He's out of Oklahoma, though. He's worked with morbidly obese patients for years, even obese patients, 500, 600 calories a day, mainly of protein and fat to keep your body in ketosis. And I won't break down the difference, but, Buchenheimer is more focused on decreasing mTOR, because mTOR and IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, when they're both up, cancer cells can grow. So they focus on getting mTOR down, hence what they do. And then Dr. Paul is more focused on ketogenic approach. I think both of those, are going to really help. So with prolonged fasting, once you break through that initial, 2-3 days of just fighting, I tell people, take time off, take vacation, get through it. And then you just feel so much better, clarity. You feel better, just energy wise, mentally, physically, emotionally. But then there's ups and downs. You're feeling great. I mean, I feel great for a couple hours, and then, man, I crash. A couple hours later, it's like, okay, it's a sign that your body's healing and going to bed early. You need a nap. Minimize caffeine intake if you can. Get some sleep and just look at this. Okay, my body's healing. That's why I don't feel good. That's why, this is challenging. And again, back to the spiritual benefits. I believe the longer you can go, the longer you can press in, the more you'll see God really do in your own heart, in your own life. Doesn't mean he's going to answer your prayer of a 40-day fast much, much better than the prayer of a person who only go 24 hours, because we don't rate success by, oh, look how long I went. That becomes legalistic. And I know a lot of people who go long and they're prideful about it. It's like, you know what? You might have physical benefits, but you missed all the spiritual benefits. And the person on a 1-day fast, tons of spiritual benefits. So it really depends where you're at, where your heart's at. God knows your heart. I mean, I don't think I've really fasted perfectly ever, because, you grab some nuts, or you just, and you kind of cave in, but you get back on track, and you get back on track, and you get back on track. So the benefits of prolonged fasting are incredible. And it depends how long you want to go, 7 week, 14 week, 21 day. Shane, what about water only? What about, a little bit of juice, or what about juicing? And one thing you do have to be careful with juicing. There's a lot of great reports online of people completely changing their lifestyle by juicing. The concern I have is, again, I look at creation. I guess that's where, I draw the line sometimes. I look at creation, and, we are designed to eat the whole apple, all the pectin, all the fiber, all the enzymes, the nutrients. And actually, when you consume the whole apple, it slows down the release, the glucose, the rate of the glycemic index. It actually slows that down as God designed it. So when straight juice, it's, blood sugar levels. And we've talked about that. You've been hearing about that a lot with insulin, and your insulin's up. And when insulin's up, it's hard to lose weight, which it is. But if your insulin's up and your calories are down, there is a sweet spot there. So with juicing, I would just recommend mainly greens. Like I just made one recently: cucumber, kale, spinach, celery, and then I threw in a green apple. And so it didn't taste real good, but and a half of a jalapeno. That really did a trick on me. So, that's one way of doing it as well. But I take it to the Lord, and it's not about perfection. It's about direction. Lord, what do you want me to do? I would rather, get through a 14-day juice fast on minimal calories and look at the weight loss and the health benefits and the spiritual benefits, then try to do something perfectly and keep messing up. We were not created to have, to consume that many calories on a daily basis. Our bodies were designed, again, creation for seasons of feast and seasons of famine. So I believe if we can get back to fasting, it's a biblical thing, that it would really, really help us. So I'll try to get to some of these live podcasts here. If you have any questions, comment now. Let's see. If it's a day fast, am I able to drink water? I would recommend actually, and again, I've explained this before, so I hate to be repetitive, but fasting in the Bible It's going to be a little offensive, but hear me out. Fasting in the Bible, you can look up 77 mentions of it. You can break down fasted, fasting, fast, and the Hebrew word. It's really closing the mouth. That's it. You're closing your mouth. So it's water. They just drank water. They didn't have any nutrient value into their system. And so that's why water, it says Jesus hungered, he didn't thirst. There's no really lust for water. There's no pull for water. So I would actually recommend, if you're going 24 hours, do just water for sure. That's encouraging. And then a question here about dry fasting. Dry fasting is, I would consult, physicians don't know a lot about it. I would take it to the Lord, because we also have to use wisdom when we're fasting. So for those of you who don't know, dry fasting is, you don't touch water at all. You don't even take a shower, because, your skin can't absorb, some of the water through the skin cells. Keep that in mind too when you put on sunscreen. If it's chemicals or hairspray or deodorant, that's why they call these things now endocrine disruptors. When you're putting on deodorant, makeup, it can really mess up our system, lower testosterone levels, different things. I would be more worried about putting sunscreen with chemicals on my skin than I would be of the sun, personally. So what was my point on that? Oh, dry fasting, water fasting. So it's people don't drink water. They don't touch water, nothing for a day or two or three. If you're asking my advice, again, I pray about it. The longer you go, the more detrimental it becomes. But there are some benefits as well. Again, I think it's how we were created. I mean, not go a whole day or two or three, but hey, drank something at a brook and I'm not going to see any water for another 12 hours, 15 hours. And even hydration. I think hydration is overly rated. Hear me out. I think we need to be hydrated, but flooding our body with water when we don't need it, it doesn't necessarily just flush out the electrolytes right away. What does it floods your bloodstream with water and fluid, and that will disrupt the chemical signals in the electrolytes. So it's always good to drink, especially when fasting. Don't try to drink a gallon. Just drink what the body needs. Go a little bit, go a while without a little bit if you need to. But again, consult your physician, take it to the Lord. But to answer the question, dry fasting, what happens is, when you fast, you've probably heard this term, autophagy takes place, autophagy, self-consuming in the Latin. Your body's consuming itself. So cells are either experiencing autophagy or apoptosis. Apoptosis is when it commit suicide. And that's what we want cancer cells to do. We want them to commit suicide. With autophagy, though, the body is going deep into the cell and it's actually cleaning the cells. It's removing these things they don't need, maybe damaged DNA, maybe damaged proteins. It's breaking down tissue that's not usable, maybe cancerous tissue, maybe lumps, fat. So again, the longer you can go, the better. Personally, I think, again, with supervision and wisdom and doctor's advice and things like that, because you don't want to start a fast, you're getting all these benefits and then you stop it too soon. And especially with refeeding syndrome, one thing about fasting is you got to be just as diligent when you refeed as you are when you're fasting. A little bit of watermelon, wait a couple hours. A little bit of watermelon, wait a couple hours. You just a little bit, you go to bed hungry. You got to give your body time, especially depending on how long you go. I mean, if you go 21 days, you got to give it a good 4 or 5 days of refeeding. So my point in saying that, it only took me 5 minutes to get here. Again, if you have a comment or question, put it in the comments. I'll try to get to it before I close this out. So with dry fasting, the reason people like it is autophagy happens even quicker. Like I've heard studies at like 4 times the rate of normal autophagy through fasting with dry fasting, because here's why. Where is there also some water being held? You guessed it, in your cells. So it will, even fat is actually the fat cells are consumed even quicker to break them down because the body needs the water. So I know that sounds cool and sounds great with dry fasting, but trust me, God's way is always the best. If you happen to dry fast, I would just, I wouldn't go too long. I mean, I've never went over 15 hours. You just want to be careful on that. So again, go back and listen. If you, if you missed some of this, but I'm talking about prolonged fasting, and then we're taking some of your questions here on Facebook or Instagram, and we're live here on Idleman Unplugged, so we will release it later. Let's say, I'll clarify. I just said earlier, when you pray for no withdrawals, you go into fasting, you're like, Lord, please help. I pray to heaven. Please help, God. I don't want nicotine withdrawals, alcohol withdrawals, caffeine withdrawals. In many cases, it's good to kind of wean off the caffeine, get it down to minimal, get off the process. If you can get your body pretty clean before you go into fasting, it's a lot easier because you're not going to be like a heroin addict rolled up in a ball for 2 days because you're withdrawing from addictive substances. So I say, pray for heaven that you'll be spared the withdrawals, but plan on hell. Meaning you're going to go through hell if there are withdrawals. But what I found when I plan ahead, like, okay, I know to expect this. Like the first, I was into day 2 on a fast recent here, and I was wanting to quit. Like, I do not feel good. I'm just laying in bed. I can't, I gotta leave the church. I got kids. And my wife reminded me, it's a long haul. And so just focusing on this is healing. That's why I've got cotton mouth. That's why my joints hurt, because what will happen during fasting also is something called retracing. Your body retraces old injuries. And again, I explain all this, and you can download the book. It's at Amazon, of course, but you can download it free at westsidechristianfellowship.org. And so I would encourage people to do prolonged fasting. It's such an incredible experience, and it really, it's like a breakthrough, like anything else. You've got to have a breakthrough in fasting or breakthrough in physical health. I mean, think about it. We love our addiction so much that we're not willing to lose that weight that we need to. Choose your hard. Yeah, fasting is hard, but so is being overweight. Trust me, I'll take fasting and feeling better and eating better 10 times more than how I used to feel sluggish, and just getting through the day was challenging. My attitude was affected. And so, it's such important. Not only that, it's a biblical discipline. Remember, Jesus said, not if you fast, when you fast. And I personally think the reason, it's good for us to go longer when we can is because of, the fact that we are more diseased than ever before. There's other diseases, that modern man doesn't have to deal with that they had to deal with back then. I'm talking about self-inflicted chronic disease, which they call metabolic syndrome, where pretty much most diseases are linked to the same thing. I don't know how many people know that, but Alzheimer's is called type 3 diabetes because it has to do with glucose in the blood and insulin and how it really affects the brain. So you look at Alzheimer's, dementia, there are different forms of memory loss and the body declining. You look at heart disease, from arteriosclerosis, the hardening of the arteries, to blood pressure. And mine just recently dropped, it was high and it came down low. And so that fasting does that. And I also believe that, type 2 diabetes, if most physicians will say, take this drug. Why take a drug when what is going on inside of me was self-created? So if I created this metabolic, syndrome inside of me, I can make different choices now where I don't need the drugs. I'll feel better. And, a lot of these, cancer, other things we can think of, rheumatoid arthritis, more chronic inflammation, a lot of them are tied to the same thing of overconsumption, and even overconsumption of their good foods, but overconsumption of overconsumption of even good foods, but also obviously overconsumption of junk. Because think about it, we're just eating. Your body has to process this. How many chemicals now are in our food, and a burger at a famous fast food chain is 58 chemicals, and your body has to, takes that in, and the liver and the kidney, and what do we do with this? And I got to store some of it in fat, and and it's trying to get rid of all this. And then we just dump some more in, and we dump some more in, and we dump some sugar in, and lots of sugar. And now insulin is raised, and now I've got, this big pasta or bread, and now I've got this glucose levels that are really elevated, and I've got sugar in my bloodstream, and now I'm feeling this way, and to feel better, now let me grab some chocolate or Snickers bar, peanut butter, or ice cream. Now it's just constantly flooding your body with junk. And that's even worse, of course. But you can also flood your body with good stuff. I actually opened up about that. You can go back and listen to a podcast last week, how I finally just said, you know what, Lord, I'm consuming too much. And it's so important to do prolonged fasting to get to really the heart of the issue. So again, Instagram, I'll look for this in just a minute. If you have any comments or actually questions about this topic of fasting. In other words, I'd love to hear from you. Even Facebook, just put in there, just even if you hear this late, what's your top question about fasting? Your top 2 questions. What are your top 2 concerns about fasting? I actually answered one of them earlier on muscle loss. So I won't explain that. Again, you can just go back and rewind and listen to the beginning about muscle loss and why that should not be a concern. Again, look at how God designed us. And if he calls us to do something, it's beneficial. So let's just say, okay, I went on fast and I lost a pound of muscle. Okay, big deal. The benefits far outweigh the risk. And it's easy with muscle memory, and they show once you start refeeding, you actually will build that muscle that was lost. And not only will you replace it, your body now is reset for a healthier, a healthier lifestyle that can actually add more muscle. The next thing that people worry about, fear-wise. So comment your top fear with fasting and your top question with fasting. How's that? So the next fear is, I'll die. I can't go into fasting mode or I will die. We have to have something in our stomach, every day. And these lies that have been told over the years, it's amazing. Here's the irony. This is just, again, if you're on medication, you've got health issues, if, for example, if your liver, if kidney really, well, liver and kidney, if there's issues there, let's say dialysis or, issues where, it's hard to purify the body like they need to. When you start fasting, you're removing toxins. So it's going to actually be more taxing on the liver and on the kidneys initially. I think once you break through that point, it won't be. But so if I had issues like that, I would probably, again, consult a physician. But I would clean up my diet, very clean. I would have minimal calories because even more calories will actually flood your liver and kidney as well. Not to mention the junk food. So I would minimal calories, probably what I mentioned earlier, that 500, 600, 700 calorie type diet. And depending on what the issue is, because more protein could actually hurt, depending on what the diseases you're dealing with your liver, kidney, especially kidney. And so you might want to try juicing. I mean, there's so many different variables, but you do want to be careful on that, of course. So people think, I will die, I have to eat. You actually don't have to eat. Here's the irony. Here's a great lie. Here's a great deception. Comment now on if you agree with this, you don't agree, what's your greatest fear, what's your question about fasting. But this is biblically speaking, science supporting, my own experience verifying. We are actually doing more damage to the body by following that false dichotomy that we have to be eating. We have to be eating throughout the day. You can't miss a meal. Definitely don't miss breakfast. Wow, definitely don't miss breakfast. Well, it's good to miss breakfast. Now, there is other studies that suggest breakfast should be the most important meal of the day. And I agree with that. If I do that, a smaller lunch and then an early dinner, so I have a lot more time on an empty stomach before I go to bed. But again, creation. What does creation say? How did God design us? Probably to eat breakfast when we need to, probably to eat dinner if we haven't caught any food or found any blueberries for a while. It's okay. You can be flexible. That's why I love when God fed Elisha. And when did he bring the food? When did he bring the food? So all you people say, don't eat breakfast. Well, God brought food in the morning. Don't eat dinner. Well, God brought food in the evening. He only brought it twice. And I believe also when they gathered the manna, you can kind of see what God does, how God operates in regard to creation. So that's the big misnomer. That's the big lie. by saying, no, fasting's bad for you, you're actually doing things for your body that are bad for you. It's just the world system and doctors, physicians know you got to eat. You'll lose too much. Well, here's what cracks me up. Okay. Rabbit trail. So you're going to a doctor. And again, I love physicians. I've got my personal physician, of course, or I've mentioned, and local physicians and people who attend our church are physicians, nurses, cardiologists. And so, we need them and they need us. But for the majority of the physicians, they maybe have 4 hours of training on nutrition. And the reason is they're trained to put a Band-Aid on the disease or put a Band-Aid on what's going on, break a bone, fix it, so it's good. But they're not trained on preventing what's causing it. So they'll say, oh, I don't know about a fast. I've people come to me, my physician doesn't think I should fast. They said after, if you go a whole day, it's not good for you. It can really slow down your metabolism. And it can, it'll cost you muscle, and it's not healthy for the body. What they fail to realize is everything I've just talked to you about, all the health benefits. So you weigh it. And again, you won't lose a lot of muscle, maybe just a little bit at the beginning with gluconeogenesis, but overall you are in protein sparing mode where your body actually, recently I was doing a fast. And I don't do as many as people think. I try, but then I fail a lot because I get busy. And I grabbed about those big Sparklet 5-gallon things. The Sparklets, what were those, weigh 35, 40 pounds. And I went to put it up on a shelf, and I'm like, man, this is lighter. This is lighter than I remember. Why? And I'm fasting. And push-ups. Do more push-ups when I'm fat. It's like, so you definitely don't lose strength. And listen right to the end here. Listen to the end. I'm going to share my experience of what I'm currently doing right now. Hopefully this will help some of you. But I want to answer this question because you don't lose a lot of muscle, and your metabolic rate, what happens, many of you know, but if you don't know, your metabolism is the rate at which your body burns calories. Well, overall, but when you talk about basal metabolic rate, the base, like if you don't move, you don't move, you just sit here. If I just sit here for 24 hours or lay down, how many calories am I burning? And, it's 1,800 calories, say, and then you add exercise, you add activity, you add non-exercise activity thermogenesis to the equation, you add your steps, and, and you can eat a lot more calories, obviously. And so, but what happens with most people with fasting is your body says, oh, again, based on design, based on creation. Isn't this interesting? I wish people would just look it through the lens of creation. Half their problems will go away. So through creation, the body says, and rightly so, oh, I'm not getting very many calories, so I need to slow down the metabolism. I need to slow down the metabolism to match the lack of calories I'm getting in. Why am I going to keep burning? So your cells actually, the activity in the adenosine, ADP, let's just call it ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy and how that works with the microbiome. It's if you look at charts and pictures and YouTube videos, it's so cool how the cell produces energy. You probably remember the Krebs cycle? I think when we were younger. But all that kind of slows down because your metabolism is slowed down. But because your calories have slowed down. But eventually, it kind of gets a rhythm there, and depending if you do a little juice or not. But when you start refeeding, as long as you do it right, here's what the refeeding itself will obviously activate some of the metabolism, the increase in metabolism. But also exercise will increase the metabolism. Building muscle, strength training will build the metabolism. And so to me, the slower metabolism, you can work with that. I can get that right back up. Just like slowing down a car, you can put on the gas again. But if you just jump right in and you go to Carl's Jr. when you're refeeding and you go back to your lifestyle, that you just wanted to give up. If you go back to that, then yeah, and your metabolism is still kind of slower or affected. You've lost maybe a little bit of muscle, so you can't quite burn as many calories as you once did. Then yeah, that would be a concern, but it's no concern whatsoever if you do things right, because again, how God designed us. So I'll try to get to that other one that just came in. If you have questions, put in the comments about prolonged fasting, the benefits. I'm curious too. Put in here, or Facebook, what's your biggest fear with fasting, and what is your top 2 questions about fasting? Maybe what's stopping you from fasting. Even if you listen to this on YouTube or Rumble later, hopefully we'll have the comments on. Sometimes we turn them off because we get a lot of negative people on there. But comment, let us know. I'm curious. So we discussed just now, and I'm going to go off in a minute, what the number one, one of the number one fears, of course, is, you'll lose muscle. Another one is I'll die. Actually, fasting doesn't kill us. Overconsumption does. So, I say that understanding that, you can't just jump into a 10-day water fast and not be prepared, not have a little bit of information on this, not letting your physician know. Again, if you're on medication, fasting lowers your blood pressure. So you don't want to be on blood pressure lowering medication. Are you on, something like Coumadin, which is a blood thinner? Well, fasting can really help the blood work and thin the blood as some of the plaque is being removed. So you want to be careful on that. I mean, there's just so much to look into, in this, but I can tell you, as God is my witness, biblical authority, that fasting is not bad for you. It will not kill you. Now, are there situations in which people died when fasting? Yeah. Could it be a situation where somebody fasts and they go too long? Absolutely. But what you might want to do too is purchase some electrolytes. There's some out there that don't have any sugar, and I don't mention any brands. Right. I don't really promote anything. People hit me up all the time to promote their stuff, but, so you get some good electrolytes with not aspartame or chemicals, and you have a little bit of sodium, magnesium, potassium, and that will really keep you feeling a little bit better, especially the sodium, and then the potassium can help to regulate the heart rate and palpitations and things like that. So again, we are in fasting mode today. We're talking about prolonged fasting, and if you missed it, you can download my book. Right now, you can go to the church website right now and download it for free. I'll probably put here on Facebook. I might be able to do it on Instagram as well. No, you have to go over to the website, westsidechristianfellowship.org, and I'll put the church website in the comments on Facebook, and probably just a PDF. You can just click the PDF and start reading right now. Click it and read. So, a couple of last ones before I get going. Could fasting help with hormone balancing? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you go back and listen to the beginning, I already talked about endocrine disruptors in our hairsprays, deodorants, especially what we put on our skin. And I don't want to give people the wrong advice, because I think if you can put some sunscreen on that maybe zinc and it's all natural, maybe made from beef tallow or something. I haven't used sunscreen in a long time, but doesn't mean, I'm correct in that. I just don't stay out a long time. But, so yeah, because hormones, this is a whole nother topic. There's lots of hormones, glucagon, insulin, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, growth hormone. There's don't quote me on it, so I don't want to say it, but I thought between around 30 hormones, maybe up to 60. I don't know. But you might be talking about testosterone and, hormones that really keep things in balance. So what fasting does, though, the good thing about fasting, because again, when we're constantly eating, and even people who eat the right food, you shouldn't be constantly eating. And that's why I opened up about gluttony on my last podcast last week. Check it out. Just too much good stuff, because I was a coping mechanism. So what happens? Hormones, insulin is a hormone. Insulin is raised, because of this or that. And then you've got growth hormone, or you got my estrogen's down, and usually hormones. Of course, your thyroid plays a role. I'm not a doctor who studies, what is it called? Endocrinology. And you look at some videos, of course, but to get more information, but hormones adjust based on certain factors. Fasting, I start to fast. My growth hormone level is skyrocketing because it wants to preserve the muscle. As a result, my insulin level is being reduced, and glucagon, in many cases, is being released. Ghrelin, another hormone, which is a hunger hormone, ghrelin now is being decreased and I'm not hungry. And so when your body does that, the good thing about fasting is it's not spending 50% of its energy cleaning out all these toxins, processing food, assimilating the food, breaking down the macronutrients of the fat and the protein, the carbs, and storing the glucose and the glycogen, and then putting this in this department. It can heal itself. And now the testosterone, men, I don't want to give you break the bad news here, but you do have estrogen too. And women, you do have testosterone too. They're just much more minimal. Your body during fasting, now the hormones can balance out and your thyroid can become much more effective and in tune. So basically fasting, resets the body, I guess is the best way to say it. It's a reset of your entire system. And that's why I said the longer you can go, I know it's hard to hear, but the better. The longer you can go, the better. Whether it's, take it to the Lord. And I know there's stages. I would encourage most people start with a 24 hour. And then, maybe work up to a 3-day. Maybe during that 3-day, have some bone broth, have some electrolytes, have a little bit of juice if you need to. And then you're feeling pretty confident. You've broken through withdrawals. And now you want to, I want to take this to 7 days. And, maybe God's put on your heart. I've shared before that God, he's put on people's heart to do a 40-day fast. Some of them have just did water only. I did a 40-day fast, primarily just water. I think it's on Amazon Prime still. If you put in my name with fasting, it should come up. But every now and then, like on Easter, I had 3 services, busy weekend. I took a little bit of nuts. Another time I had to preach, I took a little bit of juice to get through the Wednesday night service. So I made some adjustments, but dropped about 38 pounds, I think. Yeah, anywhere in the 30s. And again, weight loss is not the issue. I mean, I think it's okay though to fast for health reasons for sure, but it's nice. It's nice to have those benefits, but keep in mind, here's a big thing that will really help. There's no way around it unless you really refeed slowly and are meticulous and keep up a lot of cardio and training. And, you're going to gain a good amount of weight back, because as soon as you start eating carbohydrates primarily, and your gut fills up a little bit with material, there's a pound or 2. And then now, you're eating your carbohydrates. Well, that's glucose. And now glucose is going to be stored in your muscle and in your liver, as well. And as the glucose binds with water, and so you got some water weight. Just remember, let's say it holds a gallon of water. I get a gallon of water back. That's 7 pounds. So 7 pounds in addition to the 2 pounds of gut bacteria. But there's always gut bacteria, but you know what I'm saying. So let's say you're easily going to probably gain 8 or 9 pounds back, 10 pounds back. Men, maybe a little more, women, maybe less. But I'd say you're definitely going to, but if you start to gain over that, like let's say when I lost, and this happened to me, confession. Okay. I lost, I don't remember now. Probably almost 230 pounds, dropped to like 193 or so. And I could have hung out there right around 200 pounds, but and me, it wasn't bad, Chick-fil-A, In-N-Out Burger. And it was just too much good food. And I started to gain some of that weight back now. So to tell you what I was going to tell you earlier, right now, talking to you, just to show you it is possible. I'm on day 14 today. As I'm recording this, just have water and I have a little bit of juice when I need it, the Buchenheimer 250 calories, or instead of a little bit of juice, maybe, if I have like a little bit of almond butter to drink some green tea in the morning. I don't know why I get sick drinking green tea and matcha. Very minimal amount. You're probably averaging, a pound, half a pound a day. And you don't get caught up on the weight because you're only going to lose about a half pound a day. Once your body settles in, you get up, I'm weighed the same. Well, you could weigh the same. And this happened to me. I weighed the same for 2 days in a row, at least. And the reason is if I took some creatine or some electrolytes, a large amount of sodium. I had a little bit of beef jerky on one of those days too. That sodium is water retention. Creatine is a cell volumizer. So creatine, which is real popular, you will hold on to water. And so once I got rid of those, the next day, begin to lose again. Again, for me, it's not about the weight loss. I'm considering maybe I don't even have to lose or maybe I don't even have to check my weight. But this one I'm actually doing for physical reasons. And once I get down, I want to maintain that. Going to go a while. Don't know how long just yet, but you can do it. It was hard the first couple of days. And yesterday was hard. Yesterday was pretty hard. I had to just go lay down early, like 7 o'clock, and go to bed by 8. But then I'm up at 2:30 in the morning. I've been getting up 2:33 in the morning every single day, which feels amazing. Amazing. You get up, you can work out. You can, if you need a little bit of caffeine in the morning, like I've talked about before, I think it's okay. I just wouldn't have it later on in the day, after 9 a.m. because it's got a half-life, and it definitely affects your deep REM sleep. So if you have to have it, have a little bit in the morning, and then throughout the day, sleep and rest and let your body recuperate. So if you're a guy, you can relate. Especially as you get older, you got to maintain that muscle. But believe it or not, let me preface this by saying, listen, let me hear out my full presentation here. I don't really mind, about losing a little bit of muscle because, by the way, you lose it as you get older. I don't know what the percentage are, but I look at a picture. I weigh the exact same just about right now that I weighed at age 29. And I look at a picture when I was age 29 and I was like, I've lost a lot of muscle. Like I was leaner, less body fat back then. I was kind of looked like a mini Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was 240. I was like 210, but, or 208, whatever it was. My point is, looking now, it's like, man, this muscle goes pretty quick. Now we want to maintain that. And there's, again, dieting on, if you're just coming in, go back and listen to the beginning. I talk about creation. There's this big movement now on more protein, and then less protein, like from Walter Longo, Alan Goldhammer. Of course, you got the Esselsons, you've got the T. Carter Campbells, you've got the McDougals, you've got the whole plant-based, and you got the, Peter Attia, Thomas DeLauer, Ben Bickman, Paul Saladino, Ben Greenfield, Gary Brecka, you've got the more protein, Dr. Gabriella Lyons, and they've got some good points. And that's why, you look at it from God's perspective. You don't get too caught up in the different things because either one of those will work good for you as long as your caloric intake, and this is controversial again. I know Dr. Jason Fung says some things that he might not agree with it, but I found in my own life and the life of when I help thousands of weight loss clients, your calories do matter because calories don't matter. It's all about insulin. And that is true. I mean, if insulin's high, good luck burning fat. And that's what Dr. Ben Bickman talks about, as well. But true. But also if you're consuming too much energy, it doesn't matter if your insulin's low, and your metabolic rate is normal, you're not going to burn a lot of weight or fuel. And that's why a lot of people who go on carnivore, they lose 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds. The reason is they've lost all that glycogen, that stored glycogen. But if their calories are more than what the body needs, it will be stored and their progress could be stifled. Same with whole plant-based food. The crowd, if you're consuming too many nuts and things, you're not going to lose weight. So God-given food in moderation. There should be a caloric deficit. There's lots of apps out there. I mean, most trainers, these well-known trainers, podcasters, they'll create a calorie deficit for you. It's a no-brainer. Just wing it and let's do this and just hope it all works out. I mean, if you need to decrease 500 calories a day in order to lose weight, you need to know what your body burns. And you need to track it. And now that can become a form of dieting. I don't think it's good long term, but eventually a banana has 120 calories, a piece of bread 100 calories, depending on if it's sourdough, peanut butter, or how much in a tablespoon. You got this apple at 80 calories or an avocado at 230, and you begin to know and you begin to see handful of nuts 300 calories versus this huge salad. I mean, and you begin to choose wisely. And so anyway, hope that helped. This podcast of Idleman Unplugged on the topic of prolonged fasting. Thank you.